Hello and welcome into Contending Football. My name is James Flippin, and we're getting you ready here for Week 15 in the National Football League. You can follow me on Twitter at JamaDrop. That's JAMADROP. You can phone the show today and get involved in the discussion. 855-908-5668. That's 855-908-5668. And however you may be listening, however you're enjoying us here today, we appreciate you doing so. If you're listening to us on the Colorcast app, if you're listening to us on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, whatever it may be, excited to have you here. And again, don't forget that you can call us up 855-908-5668. Thank you to the Colorcast app for hosting us. Like I said, we are here on the Contender as well. That's the Contender with a K. And we invite you to check out our app. You can download that app for your smart device in the App Store or Google Play and check out all of our offerings that are there at the Contender, which is a localized sports talk station. Okay, what we're doing is providing you, the fan, with the sports talk that you expect, that you want, that gets you ready for the teams that you love, helps you react to the frustrating moments involved in those teams, fandoms, and all that kind of thing. And I'm excited to mention that you can check us out every single weekday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time and get the Morning Breeze. It's our first morning show, our first daily program on the Contender. We're very excited about this. Pat, the designer, and P. Kid will be bringing you live, engaging, entertaining sports talk every single morning, Monday through Friday from 6 to 9. So you're going to want to download the Contender app if you're not familiar with it. That's the Contender with a K. And we'll also always be taking your phone calls on that show. We take your phone calls here on this show. Again, my name is James. Go ahead and call me up. It's 855-908-5668. 855-908-5668. The phone lines will be open this entire hour, so feel free to join in with us. We're on Colorcast. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. And we're on the Contender. It's Contending Football. My name is James Flippin. Let's get after some of the stuff we're talking about here this week. Jonathan Taylor, after last night's performance, absolutely shredding the New England Patriots for 170 yards, proved that he is the National Football League's most valuable player. I'm really getting tired and kind of sick of the reflexive response from pro football fans whenever you ask them, who's the MVP? Oh, well, insert quarterback here. Aaron Rodgers, yep, sounds about right. Kyler Murray at one point, yep, that's right. Matthew Stafford earlier in the season, well, all right, I actually was behind that particular campaign, so we'll just leave that out of it. But what we need to realize here is that as the running back position has been diminished, made less important, been somewhat phased out in terms of its overall impact on the pro football game, that actually highlights the players who overcome that situation. Case in point, earlier this year, Derrick Henry, and we spent a lot of time talking about it on this show, Derrick Henry was absolutely dominating football games for the Tennessee Titans in almost a silly, comical way, the extent to which he was able to dominate and continue to carry his team's offense despite of the, diminished running back era that we live in. The fact that he was able to do that, the fact that his talent and his impact on the game rises above, generally speaking, what's going on around the rest of the league, that is speaking to the value of that particular chess piece in the game. Derrick Henry gets hurt. Breaks his foot. There's still some question as to whether or not he could actually make a return this year, having gone through the rehab and all that kind of stuff. But he's still top 5 in rushing yards around the league. Matter of fact, he's the 4th leading rusher in the NFL, 937 yards, despite the fact that he's been out since whatever it is, week 7. I don't even remember. So when you have a player like a Derrick Henry, or now the player that we're all talking about, the player we're focusing on today, Jonathan Taylor, standout young running back out of Wisconsin, who is just everything the Colts could have asked for. You're looking at the league's MVP in Jonathan Taylor. And the reason for that is there's nobody else like him other than maybe a Derrick Henry. And I guess if you really wanted to break it down, you could say that on their best day, a Dalvin Cook and a Nick Chubb are at least in that stratosphere with what Jonathan Taylor is right now. And we'll just leave Derrick Henry out of it because he is hurt. But, frankly, Cook and Chubb have been very banged up all season. But Jonathan Taylor has been that bell cow running back. I mean, take a look at the stats sometime. Take a look at the stats sometime and think about what Jonathan Taylor has meant to that Indianapolis Colts team. Now, look, if you tend to be somebody who really focuses on the ins and outs of football, and chances are with you listening to the show, you are one of those people, then the Indianapolis Colts have a tremendous offensive line. Quentin Nelson may well be on his way towards Canton at this point. They've got a tremendous offensive line. But that all being said, it only highlights how good this kid Jonathan Taylor is. He's toted the rock 270 times so far this year. 270 rushing attempts for Jonathan Taylor. Last night in the game against the Patriots, that, by the way, the Indianapolis Colts absolutely had to win. And they were going up against a hot New England Patriots team who, coached by the best coach anybody's seen this side of Don Shula, knew that the Colts were going to try to run the ball on them, knew that Jonathan Taylor was the key to victory, more or less, one way or the other. And what does Jonathan Taylor do? Goes out there, 29 carries yesterday. Goes off for 170 yards, 1 touchdown. And granted, he had already gone over 100 yards at that point, but a big chunk of that, the 167-yard run that basically sealed the game. I mean, these are numbers. That's an impact on the game. That's the kind of guy that you just don't really have much in the NFL anymore. With the running back by committee and the frequency of the soft tissue injuries and all this kind of stuff, I understand, right? You look at the big numbers, you understand the trends that exist in the NFL nowadays. You understand well that if you don't have a quarterback, if you don't have somebody who can at least play competently for you under center, then you don't have much of a chance. You don't have much of a chance. And that makes it complicated and somewhat difficult to parse through this thought of, well, wait a second, shouldn't it be a quarterback? Shouldn't the MVP of the league by default, by just kind of, knee-jerk reaction, be a quarterback? The answer is no. The answer is the margin, the drop-off at the quarterback position from whoever the top 5 is versus, say, the 15 to 20 spot in the league. That is a much thinner drop-off, a much less drastic drop-off than talking the top 5 running backs in the league and whoever the guys are at sort of the 15 to 20 mark. And I'm not even talking from a fantasy perspective. I'm talking about guys who can approximate what it is in this day and age to be a bell cow running back. Not only do they largely not exist, but you're talking about the prime of the prime when you consider guys at the top of that list. Again, Nick Chubb when he's healthy, Dalvin Cook when he's healthy, Derrick Henry when he's healthy, and now the king of the current status, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, again, 29 carries. Carson Wentz in the Colts win 27-17 over the Patriots last night. Carson Wentz threw the ball 12 times, 57 yards. You want to talk about the impressive, win that the Patriots had against the Bills, where Mac Jones threw the ball like 3 times in, horrific tundra-like weather. And the impressive rushing attack that those Patriots had. Carson Wentz throws the ball 12 times in a dome against a defense in the Patriots that's been clicking on all cylinders, and Jonathan Taylor rips off 170 yards on 29 carries. I'm telling you, the Colts make the playoffs. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, if they do, and if Jonathan Taylor continues to basically hover right around 100 yards rushing, if not more, any given game going down the stretch here, you're talking about the league MVP. And I don't care who you're going to mention. Aaron Rodgers, Kyler Murray, if that's who you're into. Any of the quarterbacks that you may be considering right now. Tom Brady, let's say. You better start grading on a curve when it comes to the running back, to the quarterbacks, I should say. You better start grading on a curve. Because all the rules, all the trends, everything about the NFL is set up for those quarterbacks to succeed. Do you have much of a chance if you have a bad one, or if you're 20 COVID tests deep and you're starting the janitor at quarterback? Then no, you don't have much of a chance. And yes, the NFL is predicated upon you have to have somebody better than decent at quarterback to really have a chance at a run in a championship. But that doesn't mean that position automatically always becomes the MVP. Again, to me, it actually argues that you need to show me more at the quarterback position for me to say, yes, that's the MVP. Running backs, the running back position, everything that comes with the way the league is right now, running back is the new market inefficiency. Running back is the new place where the advantages that you pick up there and how well you curb that position and have a better player than the team next to you, that's where you separate yourself these days. Everybody's got tremendous pass catchers. The offensive line is pretty much dog shit around the league. They don't practice anymore. You can't practice in pads. You don't block in practice. I see awful offensive line play pretty much every single week. Granted, the Indianapolis Colts do kind of buck the trend there, and that's partly why Jonathan Taylor is even able to rise to this level. But running back is the new market inefficiency. 855-908-5668, 855-908-5668. The phone lines are open here. It's Contending Football. My name is James Flippin, and we're on the Colorcast app. We're on the Contender app. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. Thank you for joining us here today. Congrats to the Eagles, by the way, the Philadelphia Eagles, who will be getting a first-round pick based off the fact that Carson Wentz has played as much as he has this year. So that trade that the Eagles made with Frank Reich and the Indianapolis Colts to send Carson Wentz over to Indianapolis has, worked out fine for Indy. Again, you have to have somebody who can play back there. You have to have a competent quarterback. And especially this year, Carson Wentz has looked like that. But pretty nice for the Eagles to get a first-round pick for a guy who, where he was taken in the first round, was more or less anointed as the savior for Philadelphia. Their backup, Nick Foles, ends up getting them the Super Bowl. And then they trade Wentz and his huge contract for a first-round pick. Not bad. Not bad. I'll tell you, I may be just bitter as a NFC East Giants fan, and that's fair. I think it's fair to say that I am bitter, as a matter of fact. But, life seems to work out well for those Cowboys and Eagles when it comes to the draft and just like everything with they never seem to have like cap problems or anything for whatever weird reason. Carson Wentz, awful contract, can't stay on the field, largely a bust, and they trade him for a first round pick. Pretty good. Pretty good. The Eagles have like 3 first round picks coming up this year. Must be nice. The Dallas Cowboys always picking at like 15 to 20 because their season in and of itself is mediocre, but not that bad. CeeDee Lamb? Sure, why not? Trayvon Diggs? Not bad. We'll take him. Micah Parsons? Yeah, sounds good. Just draft stud after draft stud after draft stud. I mean, I got to ask you, is there any team outside of the Cowboys that has just been more wasteful of talent and cheaply acquired talent? I mean, you got Tony Romo. Was he even drafted? He might have been taken in like the 6th round out of Eastern Illinois. Paying him nothing, use no draft capital to get him. And there's your starting quarterback for 10 years. Man, I guess you're going to win a Super Bowl with that guy, right? Nope. And then Dak Prescott taken in what, the 2nd or 3rd round out of Mississippi State. Basically, no draft capital, barely any draft capital used. But there you go. Starting quarterback for the next 10 years. I'm sure they've gone to a number of Super Bowls, right? Nope. Amazing offensive line. Like the best in the league. And then you take all-world running back Zeke Elliott and put him back there. Cook with gas. Run roughshod over the league with your running game. And by the way, you had a starting quarterback this whole time. You must have gone to a number of Super Bowls, right? Nope. And thank you to my producer who's reminding me that Romo was undrafted and Dak was taken in the 4th round. All this draft stuff, always working out for the Cowboys. Left, right, upside down, whatever. It doesn't matter. The draft always works out for them. And any Super Bowls? Can't seem to remember other than 1996. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I find it very interesting that you're talking about a team that hasn't even had, again, an NFC Championship game appearance, despite all. Now, look, if I'm tiptoeing on the grave here, if I'm dancing and whistling by the graveyard, and this leads to the Cowboys winning a Super Bowl, I will be angry with myself. But I can't help but point out what a joke it is how they've yet to accomplish anything with all the stuff that's gone right for them over the last. Oh, and we've had a lot of injuries. Everybody's had injuries. Tony Romo's collarbone was made from potato chips. That's not, anything that excuses the fact that they had a number of chances to win with him, and they've had a number of chances to win with Dak Prescott. So, again, congrats to the Cowboys for the fact that every single draft pick they ever make in the 1st round is a stud for 10 years. But I don't know what you guys are doing down there to not ever be able to win a big game considering that. And congrats to the Eagles, who somehow, some way turned Carson Wentz and his dog shit contract and his lack of production and the fact that his backup won the Super Bowl for him. Congrats on turning that into a 1st round pick. It's amazing. I'll tell you. I mean, I don't know. As a Giants fan, I'm saying like, can we trade Daniel Jones for? I don't even know. How would that translate? Like a 2nd or a 3rd, maybe? I guess if Carson Wentz is getting traded for a 1st round pick. So congrats to the Colts who won last night with 57 yards passing. Jonathan Taylor, 170, league MVP. Moving on here, and don't forget that our phone lines are open 855 908 5668, 855 908 5668. I really hate that this has to become like a COVID-19 politics show, but it obviously has to get discussed right now with the stuff that's going on around the NFL and the postponed games and stuff like that. We've got a game now, an extra game tomorrow. We've got a game on Tuesday as we're pushing out both the Browns and Raiders and the Eagles and WFT. The NFL has got to stop with this whole testing thing. With testing these guys every day, whether or not they're symptomatic, asymptomatic, acting like the disease is something that it's not. Been around for 2 years now, right? It's about weaker immune systems, people who are generally not as healthy, older people, heavier people, people with blood disorders like diabetes and hypertension. We don't have to get into the medicine of it. Do some research on it and find out who it is that's really getting devastated by this particular respiratory illness. Not that different, really, when you get down to it, from the flu. So, do we test these football players every single week, every single game, every time they come into the team facility for the flu? When's it going to happen that we kind of, as a society, say enough is enough? When's it going to happen? I mean, look, it's a good thing, for example, that the NFL decided to push these games out Monday, Tuesday, play them a little bit later in the week, the whole thing. Better to do that than to not have people playing, for sure. But have we heard a single time, have we heard any sort of widespread reporting or any in-depth inquiry, something that would lead us to believe any of these NFL players that have been testing positive over the last week, several weeks, month, whatever, any of them that were really sick? Like sick. Like I'm talking like, oh guys, I don't feel well. Oh god. I'm not trying to mock anything. I'm actually not. I'm saying, like, what's the point here? Have we heard anything about somebody who is dehydrated, sneezing a lot, coughing, runny eyes, cough, sore throat? Is this what's happening with these NFL players who are testing positive? I mean, I'd really like to know, and not in some sort of like morbid curiosity way or like, violating people's medical privacy, which I guess I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. It doesn't seem like it. So, I mean, I guess I can do it too. But have we heard about a player who was really sick? And to the extent that they were, maybe, what were they dealing with? Was it like we might expect? Most people who have to deal with a respiratory illness when they're generally relatively healthy? And I also think that at this point, right? I hope that at this point we can have a honest and frank discussion. That's probably asking a lot. That's probably assuming a lot in this day and age. But I hope that we can be a little bit honest with each other. Look at what's going on. Look at the situation we're facing when it comes to coronavirus and say the vaccine doesn't stop the spread. Never did. Unless changes are made to it or some sort of innovation, never will. So why then do we continue to ever hear about, why does the focus continue to be case numbers? How many case numbers are there? Well, what does that have to do with anything? The vaccine doesn't stop case numbers. So where in the equation are you focused on case numbers and why? Oh, well, these players, this NFL player, X, Y, and Z, he can't play on Sunday because he's unvaccinated. Who gives a shit? What does that have to do with anything other than the fact that he might have a tougher time when he gets the illness? That particular player, when they have the vaccine or don't have the vaccine, if they have it, the evidence is that they'll have an easier time dealing with the illness. That's the evidence. But not that it's going to stop the spread. So why are you acting like as if it's going to? Like, why is this why do we allow this to continue? Where people are going around, and I don't know if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook right now, anybody's like, oh my God, you're not vaccinated? Oh, I'm going to get sick. No, it doesn't stop the spread. That aspect of it is completely, let's move on. Done. It doesn't do it. It's about reducing the severity of the illness. So why would that not be on that individual person? Why would we not have it up to any given person, including a football player, for example, whether or not they get it? Why is it not their choice? Antonio Brown will rejoin the Bucs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wide receiver Antonio Brown. He will rejoin the Tampa Bay Bucs on Monday. Now, Antonio Brown may not be the world's leading citizen, but why are we forcing people to, if you don't know, Antonio Brown was suspended from the team because he supposedly had a fake vaccine card, a forged, counterfeit vaccine card. Why are we forcing people to fake documentation? Because they don't want a medical treatment to be done. Think about that. Throw out the context of the last 2 years, which I realize is difficult, right? As I'm often prone to say, there's life before and after the virus. And I've been saying that ever since the beginning. I said, you watch, it's going to be life before and after the virus. So just throw out that context if you can, right? The last 2 years. I know it's difficult, but imagine 2 years ago. And we're talking about a football player being forced to fake a written documentation, a little library card thing, faking it, counterfeit, forging it, because there's a medical treatment that he doesn't want to have to undergo. And the football league, the National Football League, is forcing that player to undergo a medical treatment. And by the way, we're not talking anything about like concussion evaluation or maybe something linking repeated head trauma to, I don't know, domestic violence or something like that. Nope, nothing like that. Nothing like that. But that's super politicized. Whether or not you're going to go with this pharmaceutical treatment, oh, we're forcing that one on you. So Antonio Brown is expected to rejoin Tampa Bay on Monday. I remember reading something along the lines of where, Bruce Arians might suspend him anyway for the rest of the year. Or it's on Bruce Arians to try to navigate and figure out, how do I respond? How do I respond now that this guy... You really think Antonio Brown's the only one? You really think Antonio Brown's the only player that forged a vaccine card? I don't. Or, faked a vaccine card. Speaking of fakes, speaking of a forgery, Urban Meyer has been fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Urban Meyer apologized. One of the things that I hate in the world of media, by the way, just a little aside, is when media outlets say, so-and-so broke their silence. Urban Meyer has broken his silence and spoken about his firing. Did he really break his silence, or has no media outlet had him on quote or something? Like, to me, you have to go a certain amount of time, maybe years, on some sort of controversial or painful topic. And if you then say something like, for example, one of the most recent things, and it wasn't years, but one of the most recent examples of a time when that headline was used, and it actually made some sense, was when Vanessa Bryant, Kobe Bryant's widow, spoke about the pictures that the sheriff's office or department, allegedly took of her late husband and their daughter after that horrific helicopter crash. The headline was, Vanessa Bryant breaks her silence. That qualifies. That is breaking your silence on a painful, personal, difficult subject. Urban Meyer talking to a reporter or several reporters like a day after he got canned, that's not breaking your silence. So let's stop with that headline as often as we do. But Urban Meyer apologizes. He says that he really wanted to make Jacksonville a destination, that he was really looking forward to that new stadium being built and standing room only, and they were going to really do something here and all this kind of stuff. You know what? If I'm a Jaguars fan, I don't want to hear that shit. Shut up, Urban Meyer, because you're full of crap. You're totally full of crap. Urban Meyer, let's think about what went down during his tenure as head coach. And I'm not even going to get into some of the nitty gritty because like people got mad at him for his like strength and conditioning coach because that guy had a bad reputation with certain players in college or something like that. And then, you know, there was the weird thing where he signed on Tim Tebow to maybe be a backup tight end. And that was a total disaster. And that didn't necessarily make sense. But think about everything that went down. You had Trevor Lawrence coming in as one of the most surefire prospects at quarterback that you've had in the last, you know, maybe since Andrew Luck or something like that. Now, time will tell if he's just not going to make it go in the NFL. But it's been a complete disaster for Trevor Lawrence. That obviously is overseen by Urban Meyer. You have Josh Lambo, the former kicker, coming out and saying that Urban Meyer kicked him during stretching and said, make your kicks. Like just an absolute asshole, like, you know, like, and cursing out his coaches and challenging them to what's on your resume? How many national titles do you have on your resume? The fact that he didn't fly back with the team after losing in Cincinnati, and not to mention that then he's out with some young woman that's not his wife. I mean, Urban Meyer couldn't have shown any less effort in his time as coach of the Jaguars. He secured the bag. He was out of coaching, right? Clearly had no interest whatsoever in continuing the grind that is being a college football coach. The recruiting, the constantly being on the road, you know, all that stuff. Clearly he didn't want that anymore. So Shad Khan drags Urban Meyer out. Nobody really objected that much, I guess. You know, we kind of know at this point the whole weird trying to make a college football coach work in the NFL thing. But I mean, could he have tried any less to have been a success in the NFL? I mean, he secured the bag from Shad Khan, got all this money to come be the Jaguars head coach, and then did absolutely nothing to earn the money that he was being paid. Nothing. To the point where now Khan, the headline is, and the report is, that he wants to not pay Meyer the rest of his contract, that they're firing him for cause. I mean, what's the cause? That he sucked at his job? I don't know if that's going to work out for them. They could try. And then after I read about the apology, by the way, Pro Football Talk had some quote, something from Meyer, where he talked about fragile players and coaches. Fragile players and coaches. Having had some thoughts maybe in the back of my head that the Urban Meyer thing was not really going to work out, and then watching it all unfold in real time, I found myself largely in disbelief at how much of a dumpster fire it was. To the point where I was like, at some point, this is going to have to stop, right? Like at some point, this is going to have to not be such a cartoonish situation. But again, if I'm a Jaguars fan, hearing Urban Meyer apologize and talk about like, we really wanted to make this into a destination. I was so looking forward to that stadium with the standing room only. I mean, could you be any more sick hearing him talking about that? What a joke. What a joke. I mean, you know, frankly, and this is not some sort of like moral high ground thing or whatever, but when Urban Meyer didn't fly home with the team, he should have been fired right away. My producer, my producer Kyle is just stepping into the booth for a second here.
You know, for a long time, and you talked about, examples of failed college coaches going to the NFL.
Right.
I thought I wouldn't have found like a worse example than Bobby Petrino with the Falcons.
Yeah, that one was bad.
He was the only other example of a guy who couldn't even finish his first year on the job without leaving.
Yeah.
I mean,
was that when he wrote the note and he put it in the team's lockers? Like, like
Dear Falcons player.
Dear Falcons player, I'm leaving the job as.
Yeah.
And then was that before or after he got into that motorcycle accident with like the woman that he was dating and he had like the neck brace on or whatever?
That was later. Yeah, that was while he was on Arkansas. Yeah.
Oh my God.
There was a lot of Schadenfreude about that following what happened. And,
unbelievable.
But even with him, I mean, I remember, there was at least like, he had to deal with the whole Michael Vick thing that was in his first year in the job. Like with Urban Meyer, I mean, this could not have been more of a dumpster fire.
No.
For a guy who had won everywhere he went, and I really didn't even think the Jaguars were in, for a team that had gone 1-15 the year before, that they were even in that bad of a position.
No.
Roster-wise,
yeah, I thought
wise.
We talked about it during our draft show that they could have been a team that turned it around quickly. But when I saw that, of course, it's very standard boilerplate stuff that he would like apologize or whatever. But the quote where he's talking about, I really wanted to see this be a destination and the standing room only fans, like, shut the fuck up. You couldn't have made any less good faith effort at actually being a good NFL coach. You hoped you got fired even earlier. He would have been happy if he got fired 4 weeks ago, because at least he wouldn't have had to go through this shit. At least he would have been home already. Being a bad husband to his wife, at least from what we could tell.
Also, it really shines a light on just like how, if you are one of these A-list college coaches, what those guys can get away with and what they think that they can, I mean, you got to imagine like kicking the, kicker in the ass and dipshit, going out with his wife and not traveling back, all that other stuff. Like, you got to figure, I mean, he probably did that at other jobs.
Yeah.
Calling the assistant coaches losers.
No,
he
did
all that stuff before and was able to get away with it because you're the unquestioned king when you run a big program like that.
No, it's true. You're the king. You're the king in college, and that's not the way it is in the NFL. It's a different. Right. It's just a different thing. So yeah, good job, Urban Meyer.
Apparently, he even wanted like Josh Lambo to like atone for not taking shit from him, for even saying like, "Don't ever kick me again." I've never had a player talk to me like that before.
Yeah,
according to Lambo.
Right. Well, anyway, happy trails to Urban Meyer. I'm sure he'll be done. Nobody would be shocked, I guess, if he turned around and got the job at Notre Dame or something. No, they already hired their defensive coordinator, right, as head coach. So much for that. Offensive coordinator. All right, so moving on here, we know that in the Ravens-Packers game, Lamar Jackson's not going to play. Or at least it looks that way. Tyler Huntley likely getting the start, and maybe that's broken by now and gone official, but I don't know. For Baltimore, who has really been struggling offensively, and they'll be going up against Green Bay. Just connecting back to that earlier conversation we'd had about MVP and stuff like that. The chalk pick, I think, if I had to pick one of the quarterbacks, if I wasn't going to be on this running back thing with Jonathan Taylor, I'd probably go Aaron Rodgers as MVP. So I guess I can say the NFC MVP is probably Aaron Rodgers. And, you kind of have to just continue to marvel at, much like Brady, you have to just marvel at the way he continues to get the job done. And the extent to which he is just in control of a football game from snap to snap in a way you just don't see. It's like, Michael Jordan mid-hang time, mid-dunk, when he just seemed to sort of float in the air. That's sort of the way it feels like to me watching Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady conduct a play from behind the line of scrimmage at the quarterback position. It's like they're so in control of time, space, cosmic forces. It's just on a different level. Last night, during the pay-per-view boxing event that was headlined by whichever Paul brother it is and whoever the stool pigeon was that he knocked out, Frank Gore, former NFL running back, arguable Hall of Famer, he became a meme. And this was during a fight with Darren Williams, the former NBA point guard. Frank Gore kind of got blitzed, knocked off in a corner, and was getting punched pretty good by Darren Williams there. And the look of kind of shock, fear, and just like bewilderment that's on the face of Frank Gore, you will be seeing that used as a meme going forward. thought I would bring that to your attention. But as much as anything, I also wanted to mention that I never thought that an NBA point guard would ever beat an NFL running back in a boxing match. That definitely kind of threw me off. Like when I thought about it from that perspective, when I was like, wow, a point guard beat an NFL running back. That's pretty interesting, just in terms of the kind of profile you expect out of both. 855-908-5668, 855-908-5668. Let's go through some of these games and get you ready for some of the games that are on the schedule here today. We'll start with Cowboys-Giants as the Cowboys look to further cement their position leading the NFC East. They enter the game at 9-4. The game is being played in East Rutherford, MetLife Stadium. The Giants, trying to avoid double-digit losses at 4-9. And I got to tell you, as a Cowboys fan, or I should say as a Giants fan, you look at the line, Dallas is favored by 11.5 points. I would be shocked, happy, unexpected, whatever, surprised, whatever you want to say, if the Giants so much as score a touchdown today. If the Giants so much as score more than 10 points, I'll be shocked. Mike Glennon under center, all kinds of COVID stuff going on. I mean, that's true for pretty much the entire league. But, the Giants have a lot of people, especially on defense, who are, not going to be able to go because of the positive tests. And this just feels like the kind of game where, the Cowboys pretty much, for a fact, are the best team in the NFC East. This is a game where they're going to cement that. As much as I was clowning on him earlier, as much as I was saying, I don't know how you get your franchise quarterback without spending draft capital and still struggle to make make a run at the Super Bowl. I know this is a game where they get right. You just know it. You just know it. Late in the season, Giants got nothing going on. The stadium's going to be packed with Cowboys fans, and it's just going to be ugly. It's just going to be ugly. I don't even know how much of it I'll be able to watch. Because, the more you watch a team like the Giants that just is completely ineffectual on offense, it's just not worth watching. It's just not. It's awful. Because, the one thing that is kind of fun about anything in sports, yeah, sure, defensive stops or a big defensive play or, some game where the defensive line or some linebacker is just completely unblockable and all this kind of stuff, yeah, that's always fun. But you watch sports to watch your team put points up on the scoreboard. And the Giants don't ever do that. And in several years past now, it just doesn't ever happen with any kind of consistency. And it's awful. It's a bad fan experience. It's bad football. It's embarrassing. It's boring. It just sucks. So as far as if the Cowboys cover that 11.5 point spread, I'm not going to be, messing with that. I really wouldn't know how to tell you one way or the other how that's going to go. But I'm sure the Cowboys get the dub. Panthers-Bills, another 1:00 game. Big game for the Bills. They're trying to, hold on to their playoff hopes here. And I mean, at one point, it looked like they kind of had a stranglehold on the AFC East division of their own. That obviously has gone by the wayside. An opportunity for them in the sense that the Patriots lost yesterday. The Bills at home, Josh Allen is going to play. He's got a sprained left foot. If you're a Bills fan, you got to hope that doesn't make a big impact as the game goes on. But, big game for the Bills, massive game. And the Panthers, during pregame warm-ups, their kicker, Zane Gonzalez, had to be helped off the field, apparently. So I don't know if that means that the Panthers aren't going to have a kicking game today, if they're just going to have to go for 2 on any given touchdown they might score. Maybe not, field goal is not a thing. I don't know if their punter can place kick or whatever it may be, but you got to win this game if you're the Bills. Now, again, if you're betting on it, it's a 14-point spread. that the Bills have to cover. So that's significant. I think that might be the biggest line of the week, as a matter of fact. But big game for the Bills, big opportunity for them, and they just have to make sure that they take care of business on offense because, their defense really should be able to keep the Panthers in check with some of their struggles. Cardinals, Lions. The Cardinals don't look now, but they're at 10-3. They have not lost a game on the road. You got to figure that's going to continue here today. Very close to that 14-point spread here, and Arizona being a 13-point favorite. Cardinals getting healthier. The Lions coming off their first win of the season. I would expect this to be at least a close game. The Lions have played with a lot of pride up until this point. There's been some blowouts for them, of course. They're not a good football team, but I feel like Dan Campbell has some good stuff going on up there. But not a ton to talk about. The Cardinals are one of the better teams in the NFC, and this should be easy work for them. Of course, the whole Denard Hopkins thing, not so easy for them as he had to go on injury reserve and he's having knee surgery. So, the Cardinals have had some challenges throughout the year from a health perspective. That goes without saying. But it's the right time of year to be potentially getting more healthy. So we'll look to them and see how they do in that game on the road against Detroit. Jets, Dolphins, AFC East rivalry game. The Dolphins have been on a hot streak lately, playing some good football. The Jets now have Zach Wilson back firmly under center. He's kind of making his way back from his knee injury, I should say. And, the Dolphins feel like they have their guy in Tagovailoa. So it's a matchup of young quarterbacks. It's a rivalry game. Miami firmly favored to win at a 10.5-point spread. And the Jets are just decimated at cornerback. If you're a fantasy guy, you may have felt like you really had an ace up your sleeve with Jalen Waddle playing for the Dolphins, but he's out with COVID. And that's a real shame for you fantasy players because he was going to go up against the Jets secondary that's just absolutely decimated. Could have been a huge day for Jalen Waddle, but maybe it's a huge day for Devontae Parker. So you fantasy players out there, and good luck to you, by the way. The playoffs are underway for fantasy. So good luck to you if you have a game out there today that you're worrying about. Jets and Dolphins could have some impact there. Titans and Steelers, a 1:00 game. The Steelers offense, really continues to struggle. They've won some tough games this year, lost some tough games, but we know it's Big Ben Roethlisberger's last year. He doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to talk about the task at hand. The AFC playoff race, a really tough one at 6-1. It's an uphill battle for the Steelers. This, I would think, a game they pretty much have to win at home to have any hopes. And the Titans are looking to get 10 wins on the standings. So it's an even line. Vegas figures this one's going to be really close, especially there in Pittsburgh. And the Titans have not really been world beaters on offense themselves. So I would imagine a low-scoring game there. The over-under pretty much backs that up. They're putting it at 43.5, Vegas. So we'll see. We'll see if the Titans can do enough on offense, and we'll see if the Steelers can have a little bit of a turn-back-the-clock performance and maybe hope to match up with Tennessee in that respect. Also at 1:00, matchup of the 2-11 Texans and the 2-11 Jaguars. This is the first game for the Jaguars without Urban Meyer. And we'll see if they come out in any sort of spirited fashion there at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is favored by a touchdown. And, I guess that's not really saying much. There's two bad football teams that don't have a lot going on. But, that Texans defense, especially against the run, is just horrific. And, James Robinson, who's been kind of bottled up by the coaching staff as much as anything. The guy's only got 143 carries on the year. He's about 100 off the pace from where you would think he maybe should be, given what that team is and what they want to do. He could have a big day. If you're a fantasy guy who got into the playoffs with James Robinson is kind of what amounts to your RB2, could be a big day for James Robinson. So we'll see. All right, moving on to the 4 o'clock games. We do have the phone lines open here. My name is James Flippin. That's James Flippin with an F, and it's the Contender with a K. Also, thank you to Colorcast. If you're listening to us on the Colorcast app, we appreciate that. You can call us too. The phone lines, like I said, 855-908-5668. What is the Contender? The Contender is localized sports content, and it's right on your phone. It's on an app. You can search for the Contender with a K in your iPhone App Store or your Google Play. Download that app, tap it, set notifications, take us with you. And one of the things you're going to be excited about if you check out our app is that Monday through Friday, we're going to have a new morning show. Our first morning show live every Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. And it'll be Pat the Designer and P Kid, not with the Windy City Breeze, but the Morning Breeze. And of course, it'll be everything you expect out of them. You know, sports talk with a Chicago slant, talking sports the way Chicago talk, as they say. And we're very excited to keep building out this community at the Contender, which is really, you know, if you're a sports talk radio guy, if you like sports talk radio, come with us as we move off the FM and AM dial and put it onto the smartphone. So that's what we're doing. And we're moving into the 4 o'clock games here. Some minutes left to play with here on Contending Football. If you want to get in on the phones, it's 855-908-5668. But we're talking about some of these 4 o'clock games now. Bengals, Broncos, identical 7-6 records. This game is in Denver. Denver favored by a field goal. The Bengals, you know, kind of a tough team to figure out. I think you could say the same thing about the Broncos, right? The Broncos have a strong defense, and at times they've kind of struggled to move the ball. The Bengals have a lot of offensive weapons, but have kind of, you know, at times just come up small and not necessarily been as good as you would have expected them to be. They kind of follow up some big games with a dud and so on and so forth. But big game for both teams. We've talked about how bunched up the AFC is. Both teams at 7-6. You know, Joe Burrow has had really a nice season kind of answering some of the concerns that came with his knee injury last year. And with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins rounding into form with the Cincinnati Bengals passing attack and Joe Mixon generally being healthy, you're talking about a really high power offense there for the Bengals. I think that they're only going to get better as they play more together and, you know, maybe as they're able to supplement some of their offense with more pixel on the offensive line and all this kind of thing. The Broncos, again, a team that I feel like they're still kind of predicated on that defensive identity. And they've been sort of up and down. You know, they traded away Von Miller. There was questions as to whether or not there was some locker room things there. And, you know, the Saints tried to trade for Teddy Bridgewater when their quarterback injuries started to mount. So that obviously didn't happen. Teddy Bridgewater is still there in Denver. Both these teams are in the thick of it. You know, this is a big game. You could really argue that this is the game of the week, this Bengals-Broncos game. You know, like I said, Titans-Steelers is big in its own way. A lot of teams kind of have games that are important, take care of business games for them. The 49ers in the NFC playoff race and the Falcons kind of sort of clinging to hope there. That game's big. But Bengals-Broncos, you could argue this is the game of the week. You really could. And it looks like it'll be a good day for football there in Denver. So if you get that game on CBS, might want to check that one out. Falcons 49ers, we just alluded to it. It's, 49ers here are dealing with injuries in their backfield. You know, Eli Mitchell, not only has he had concussion problems, but also his knee. He's going to be out today. So it'll be mostly Jeff Wilson Jr. that's kind of shouldering the load on the running back side for the 49ers. The 49ers, I think, have struggled to make the most of their offensive weapons most of the year. It seems like that's starting to get better. The whole disappearance of Brandon Ayuk for as long as he was not sort of a factor was bizarre and strange. And then, on the Falcons side, Matt Ryan just keeps ticking, man. Matt Ryan keeps on ticking. Over 3,100 yards passing for the season. Cordarrelle Patterson has just been an absolute revelation for them. This game should be pretty good too. And it's interesting when you think about where the Falcons were early in the year, how, they've kind of turned their season around and kind of kept it relevant and interesting here into late December. So good for them. It's a good representation of them, their coaching staff there, as they kind of did a whole overhaul of their roster. It's almost like they got rid of everybody except for Matt Ryan. So, and I mean, don't forget, they're also doing this without Calvin Ridley, who's dealing with his issues. So the Falcons have kind of quietly had for them anyway, impressive season. Also at 4:00, Packers Ravens. This is a big game. If you rather focus on this one as kind of the game of the week, I can understand that. The big issue being that it's not going to be both teams matched up at full strength. With Lamar Jackson unable to play and with Huntley getting the start for Baltimore, it's not the same juice, not the same pizzazz that the game would have had otherwise. But, still a big game. Both teams, obviously, the Packers kind of in control of their playoff destiny here. The Ravens fighting to maintain it. And this is a game in Baltimore where the Ravens have been really good this year. So, despite the fact that the Packers are favored by over a touchdown, I would expect that this game should at least be close. It's just a shame that we're not getting the chance to watch, Rodgers against Jackson, because that's really what you would have wanted to see with this particular game. And then we know the Sunday night game is going to be Saints-Bucks. The Buccaneers at 10-3 here, going up against their division rival Saints at home. I feel like this game is going to be one that should be an easy win for the Buccaneers. Really, when the Jameis Winston injury happened, I think that kind of just torpedoed the Saints season. It's not to say that Taysom Hill couldn't necessarily be a long-term starter for them and be a guy who could be their, long time, or I should say kind of full-time signal caller. But I just felt like that team was built around and focused on Taysom Hill being the Swiss Army knife, Jameis Winston being the guy that kind of was hopefully going to approximate on certain plays what you felt like you get out of Drew Brees. And when Jameis went down, that was kind of just, that was a tough one for the Saints and what they wanted to do. Because, I mean, I'm a Jameis Winston fan. I think that Jameis Winston brings a lot to the table. And to miss out on him was definitely tough. You know what I mean? Not an easy task for any football team to lose the starting quarterback. So again, thank you for joining us here on Contending Football. My name is James Flippin. You can email me, flippinoutradio@gmail.com. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to follow us on Twitter at The Contender, it's The Contender with a K. That's The Contender with a K. And if you're listening to us on the web at thecontender.com, or if you're listening to us on Colorcast, if you're listening to us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the whole thing, please feel free to check out the Contender app. We would love to have you do that, because starting tomorrow, starting on Monday, our morning show with Pat the Designer and P Kid will be coming your way Monday through Friday. So again, thanks for joining us. My name is James Flippin. You've been listening to Contending Football on the Contender. Thank you so much for joining us here on this version of Contending Football. We'll see you next time.